And we're asking a very silly question. Who would you rather be? A team that just won 12 games or a team that just lost 13? It seems very silly, but we just had Tim Calishaw, Dallas Morning News, on with us here on the show, and he said, you know, in Washington, you guys have a situation where you don't have a quarterback, but you know you got this number 2 pick and a bunch of cap space and the way to figure it out. In Dallas, we have a quarterback who is 8 years in, is very good, has been very bad in the playoffs, and it's really rare that quarterbacks figure it out in year 9, year 10, and get to the NFC Championship game, and they figure out the playoff thing. And, oh, by the way, said a quarterback is owned $59 million next season. Now, to answer my very silly question, I would much rather still be the Dallas Cowboys. Anthony, do you disagree with that? Would you rather be the Commanders or the Cowboys? Let's say going into next season at the very least.
If we're just talking about these two teams, I think I would rather be Dallas. But if we're just talking about being a 10-win team, I think depending like where you're, like the Packers. If I'm the Packers, I would love to be the Packers just because they're young.
That wasn't the question.
Oh, yeah. All right,
you know,
The
Packers, the Packers might have the best. Like, if we were to do, this would actually be interesting. This is a good idea, Anthony. We should write this down. Next 5-year power rankings, right? Or next 3-year power rankings. Which teams would you like to be over the next 3 years in the NFL? You look at cap space, young talent, old talent that you think can hang out for 3 years. Like, I think that becomes pretty fascinating. Like, this year is one thing, next year is one thing. Because, like, if you're Kansas City, right, can Travis Kelce hang on for one more year of fairly elite production? Probably. Can he do 2 years of elite, or in 2 years is he like an average tight end with a huge name, and or is he retired?
Yeah.
And then what do you have? Well, you do have Rashee Rice and Sky Moore and these young guys. Hopefully Rice looks like he's a good player. Moore looks like he might, I won't say be a bust, but like he's not going to be a stud. Like, can you get, what else can you get as you continue to pay Patrick Mahomes oodles and oodles of money? And you have to pay guys like L'Jarius Sneed, some of your young defensive backs, right? But if you're looking at just next year, or even the next 3 years, I'd still probably rather be Dallas, depending on what they do at the head coach spot. But it is way closer than it should be, and this is the nature of the NFL to an extent, but it is still way closer than it should be for a 4-win team versus a 12-win team. Because if you look at the top of the Cowboys like cap sheet, right? The good news for them, well, actually, no, I take that back. One, they need to figure out a contract for CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's contract is probably, he's due for an extension like this offseason. He's going into his 5th-year option. He's going to count $17 million against the cap this season. But they got to figure him out long term. So not ideal to say the least. Hey, we got one good young player at the top of the cap sheet. Oh, we have to pay him next year. Above that, you have 32-year-old DeMarcus Lawrence, who I think is still good, but took a step back this year. He is set to count $20 million on the cap this year, and then has a void year basically after. So he's in the final year of his deal. So, and the good news for Dallas is the relief is coming eventually. Then you have Zach Martin, who is 34 years old, still great, but is in the final year of a $28 million contract. So the good news is, like, Lawrence and Martin are going to come off the books. The bad news is you have to replace them. And by the way, Micah Parsons clicks on Spotrac tab. All these numbers courtesy of Spotrac. This is the final year of his rookie deal. They will obviously exercise his 5th-year option to give him one more, but he's going to want a ton of money. So there goes your DeMarcus Lawrence money. There goes your Zach Martin money to Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb. And then you're still in salary cap hell. You still need to figure out the rest of the skill positions because, like, Brandon Cooks is 31 and is not on a long-term deal. Michael Gallup, you did sign to a longer deal, I believe. But, like, he wasn't the same coming off that ACL this year. Yeah, he's got 2 years left on his deal. So it's a situation where, like, you got to figure out how to get Dak Prescott's cap number down, and you don't really have a way out of it. Like, your hope is that next year he's just better. And coming off a year where he was an MVP caliber player and then bombed again in the playoffs by just completely botching a first half. He was good in the second. Actually, that game is on right now, and it's kind of funny watching it come back. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden he starts finding CeeDee Lamb. All of a sudden he starts doing all the Dak stuff that's really good. And he threw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. He just threw for 2 picks and a pick 6, and couldn't find CeeDee Lamb with radar in the first quarter. You're just relying on that dude to be better versus this blank slate of $78 to $90 million in cap space, the number 2 overall pick in the draft, and 5 picks in the top 100, 9 overall that the Commanders have.
Yeah, I mean, I feel as though a lot of blame, is on Dak. And we talked about it yesterday. You allowed a team to go out there, put up 48 points. Everybody deserves some of the blame. But this defense was playing number 1 or, top 3 defense all season long. And I feel like sometimes you need your defense to, go out there and bail you out sometimes. And I don't think Dallas's defense did that. Green Bay, they controlled time of possession in the first half, and they, that was smart of them, keep a hot and explosive offense off the field. And I think they just, perfected the game plan a little bit better than, Dallas.
Yeah, and so it comes down to, and here's the other thing too, right? Let's say they move on from McCarthy. You think Dak is going to thrive under Josh McDaniels' convoluted whatever system? Now, there's already talk that McDaniels might be going to be the OC in New England, work with Mayo.
Yeah.
But, like, does Bill, if Belichick goes there, does he bring Bill O'Brien? Right? But, like, I doubt he's going to bring whatever McCarthy has been running. So Dak would have to learn a new system. And what are the chances in year 1 of a new system with a completely new coaches and a completely new atmosphere that he's going to do as well as he did this year? Probably not very good. Now, maybe by the playoffs it works out, but at the end of the day, like, Dallas has to self-improve. There's not going to be a lot of help they can acquire from the outside. Their draft pick is going to be late. Their cap situation is not good.
Yep.
And they've got a quarterback who most teams would be very happy with.
I would.
But, yeah, I mean, Dak Prescott would instantly become the best quarterback Washington has had in a long time. He'd be the best quarterback in Bears franchise history. Instantly. Yeah. Seriously. That's because the best current quarterback in Bears franchise history is probably Jay Cutler. But, yeah, it's not a good situation down there. With the understanding that that is a relative term, though. And this is the thing that I think sometimes, like, with the narrative around the Cowboys gets out of control is like, okay, so if they go 12 wins or in the playoffs again, and then they win a game, like, they could easily be in divisional, or they win 2 games, God forbid. Now they are in the NFC Championship game. Like, is that out of the equation? No, they just need to run it back, with the same success that they've had 3 years in a row, and that feels hard.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.